I am used to putting my phone on silent at night. So that night, I didn't receive the emergency call from Nora. In the end, she went missing in a foreign land. Dad blamed me, asking why it wasn't me who went missing. My brother hated me, saying he only recognized Nora as his sister. My fiancé was furious, choking me and repeatedly saying he wanted my life in exchange. For this reason, I traveled all over the world just to find the missing Nora. Finally, I found her. Everyone was overjoyed and in tears at Nora's return. They wanted to offer all their heartfelt apologies to make up for her loss. Because of this, they drove me out of the house just to give her an explanation. But they didn't know that on the same day, I was diagnosed with cancer and was close to death. When I appeared at the airport with Nora, my father, who was always stern and rarely smiled, had tears in his eyes as he embraced her tightly. Nora, you don't know how worried I was about you. The scene of their father-daughter reunion was already very touching. Not to mention that at this moment, Nora was crying uncontrollably, repeatedly expressing how much she missed them. My brother also shed tears, holding a bouquet of Nora's favorite flowers and looking at her as if she were the most precious treasure in the world. Nora, brother traveled all over the world looking for you these past few years. I'm glad you're back. Even Liam, who rushed over after receiving the news, couldn't help but redden his eyes. He carefully reached out, gently stroking Nora's head, his voice barely containing his sobs. The three men present all lost their composure due to Nora's return. This scene was truly heartwarming. If I weren't the one being ignored, perhaps I would also be teary-eyed, reminiscing about this long-awaited reunion. Nora hugged each of them, her voice horror from crying as she recounted the hardship she had faced abroad. This drew expressions of deep concern and guilt from the three men present. Liam was almost swearing to the heavens that he would make up for all the love and care that had been missing for those few years. Nora, no one will dare to bully you anymore. We will protect you always. Nora wiped her tears and turned her gaze to my face. If only my sister had answered my emergency call back then, I might not have had to wander for so long. But it's okay. I don't hate my sister. Her seemingly understanding words instantly placed me at the center of criticism. The three men, who already held strong opinions against me, now looked at me with even more palpable hatred. Dad directly slapped me across the face. With the crisp sound of the slap, passers-by at the busy airport paused, unable to help but watch the commotion. Emily, how could I have such a vicious daughter? Dad was filled with disappointment and hatred. It felt as though I were not his biological daughter, but an enemy. My brother joined in, pushing me and looking at me with even more naked hatred than Dad, as if he wished he could kill me on the spot. Even if you make amends and bring back Nora, you can't just let those 5 years of suffering she endured go unpunished. You must pay for it. Looking at my two closest family members in front of me, every word they said in defense of Nora was filled with accusations and hatred. My heart ached to the point where I could hardly breathe. Clearly, I was once their most beloved daughter and the best sister. But before I could speak, Liam stepped in first, taking Nora's hand and intertwining his fingers with hers, completely disregarding the fact that I was his fiancé. Emily, I won't marry a vicious woman. Besides, the person I truly love is Nora. Hearing this, Nora blushed and buried her head in his arms. This man, whom I had loved for over a decade, once swore in front of my mother's grave when we were young that he would love and protect me for life. But everything changed once Nora arrived in this family. Not just him, Dad and my brother changed too. Nora is the daughter of Dad's white moonlight. It is said that white moonlight is unforgettable, and the early deceased white moonlight is even more unforgettable. Dad's white moonlight had once chosen to break up with him because she found him too poor, marrying the wealthy heir who pursued her instead. After Dad fell into despair, he met my mother. My mother helped him out of the shadows, and later they married and had me and my brother. Everything was originally progressing in a good direction. But that woman who once abandoned Dad for money was later abandoned by someone else. When Nora was 13, she passed away. At that time, my mother had also recently died from illness. While I was still immersed in grief, Dad brought Nora, who had lost her mother, back home. He not only changed her surname, but also gave her all the fatherly love that should have belonged to me. It was then that I realized that the father who seemed to be filled with memories of my mother had never truly forgotten his white moonlight deep down. Even though that woman had once trampled him into the dust, he still foolishly cherished her year after year. Now that his white moonlight is dead, her only daughter became the outlet for Dad's pent-up love. As for my brother, he used to care for me very much. When my mother died, he even knelt by her bed and said he would always be a good brother and protect me forever. But everything changed once Nora came to this family. This delicate girl, who would cry at the drop of a hat, quickly won the hearts of Dad and my brother. She would deliberately fall to the ground and then claim I pushed her whenever my brother showed up. She would pretend to be obedient and come to my room to ask for help with her homework. Then, as she was leaving, pull out a small knife to cut her arm, drawing blood. Then it would just happen that my brother would catch her in the act, solidifying the so-called truth that I was bullying her. She would also pretend to be bullied at school, ending up with bruises all over her body. In reality, she had already conspired with those delinquents. When Dad came to the school, those delinquents would accuse me of bullying her. Many events unfolded unexpectedly. I didn't even have time to react. Sometimes I would wake up after a nap and realize I had committed a heinous act. In short, she completely took away the love that was supposed to belong to me. Even Liam, who had grown up with me, ultimately succumbed to her tears, looking at her with more and more pity. He would say, Nora was abandoned by her dad when she was young and lost her mom. Since your family adopted her, she is your sister. Don't be petty and always think of bullying her. Even though I repeatedly explained that I had never bullied her, no one believed me. Later, after the college entrance examination, Nora said she wanted to travel abroad. Without a second thought, Dad handed her a black card, telling her to buy whatever she wanted and not to deprive herself. Yet he told me that girls shouldn't be vain and that I should work part-time to earn my tuition. My brother also supported her, even taking out his own little stash just to let Nora buy a few more gifts she liked. As for me, I bought a suitcase for college, and my brother would scold me, saying, "Why can't you learn from Nora? She has had a hard life since she was young and has always been frugal. Even when she really wants something, she can endure it. But you just buy. Not even in the same league." I looked at the wall of luxury handbags in Nora's room, and just as I was about to argue back, I suddenly felt it was unnecessary. It wasn't that it wasn't necessary to speak up, but rather that it was not worth saying it again. I had said it before, and my brother would respond, "What if there's a wall of luxury handbags? Those were all gifts that Dad and I forced on her. They have nothing to do with Nora. See, this is how blind they are." So when Nora said she wanted to travel abroad for a while, I surprisingly felt a rare sense of relief. Without her around, I could finally feel like I wasn't an outsider in this family. But no one expected that while traveling abroad, Nora would call me at midnight, knowing full well that I had the habit of keeping my phone on silent at night. So I missed that call. The next day, I received the news of Nora's disappearance. The last call she made was to me, but I didn't answer. The records at the police station seemed to indicate that I deliberately ignored the call, leading to her disappearance. Dad hated me, asking why it wasn't me who went missing. My brother hated me, saying he only recognized Nora as his sister. Liam also hated me, thinking I had a heart of a scorpion, repeatedly saying I should pay for Nora's life. For 5 years, they hated me continuously until I finally traveled around the world and found Nora, who was at Paris Fashion Week, and brought her back home. I thought everything would return to normal. So when the doctor placed the medical record in front of me, I couldn't believe it, thinking it must be a misdiagnosis. After all, I was so young. How could I have late-stage cancer? "Miss Emily, hurry up and notify your family. Let's arrange for hospitalization." The doctor underside his eyes, showing a hint of sympathy, looked at the latest-stage pancreatic cancer diagnosis on the medical record. I found it somewhat absurd and laughable. I had just felt a bit unwell, coupled with getting slapped by Dad. I felt faint and sick from the sight of blood. So when they had all crowded around Nora and forgotten about me after leaving the airport, I thought I'd come to the hospital for a checkup. It was just a routine physical examination. How could it be latest-stage pancreatic cancer? I clutched the medical record, and suddenly my heart raced. A sense of inexplicable panic engulfed me, fearing that I might die suddenly at any moment. After all, I wasn't ready to die. Looking at the 3 numbers in my phone contacts, I was at a loss about who to call. Maybe no matter who I called, no one would care. But just as I hesitated, my brother's call came in unexpectedly. I trembled and accidentally pressed the answer button. His voice came through the phone. Emily, it was because you deliberately didn't answer the phone that caused Nora to wander for 5 years. Now that she's back, Dad and I have decided to give her an explanation. Liam said that since you have such a wicked heart, you should treat others as they have treated you. Don't ever use the Alexander family's money again, and don't come back to live here. Just die outside. If you had any backbone at all, you would have wandered outside for 5 years like Nora and then come back home. After saying that, my brother hung up the phone without hesitation. I looked down at the medical record in my hand. Latest stage pancreatic cancer. Even with the best treatment, I might not survive for 5 years, let alone being kicked out of the house like a stray dog. I didn't have much money on me, so I couldn't afford the expensive surgery costs. I wouldn't be able to extend my life and would likely just wait to die. I suddenly really wanted to know what their expressions would be if they found out I was going to die. Would they be happy, or would there be a hint of sadness for the past 5 years? I had been running all over the world. Even though I had originally been accepted into my dream university, I didn't have time to attend, constantly postponing my studies, waiting for the moment I would find Nora and make up for the lost time. But now I was about to die. Going to university seemed to have lost its significance. Not to mention I didn't have much money to begin with, and now I've been completely kicked out of the house. If I can manage to get by for a few months, that would be quite good. Before my mom passed away, she left me a small apartment in her name. She said that girls need a home of their own. If one day I found myself homeless, that would be my last refuge. At that time, Dad and my brother disapproved of her words. Emily is our precious treasure, my most beloved daughter. How could I let her become homeless? Yeah, Emily is my sister. Even if I have to scavenge for scraps, I'll support her so she can grow up carefree. The sweet words back then sound so ridiculous now. I curled up in the apartment with the curtains drawn all around the room, making it dark day and night. Unless I was extremely hungry, I wouldn't get up to make something to eat. In short, I was just waiting to die. I had initially planned to stay up in the apartment, waiting until I could no longer endure it, then close my eyes and leave this world entirely. After a long time of mental preparation, I had accepted that I could die at any moment. Although I was a bit scared, it felt less daunting compared to the incessant blame I had faced over the past few years. Suddenly, I thought death wasn't so terrifying anymore. After all, Mom was waiting for me underground. The mom who loved me the most in heaven and on earth. But then my brother called me. Nora's birthday is coming up. She's crying and begging us to let you come home for a day. She's so kind. How could you bear to hurt her? Tomorrow, you must come home. My brother's tone left no room for rebuttal. It sounded like an absolute command. Perhaps when one is on the brink of death, the love that one has longed for suddenly feels like a pile of garbage, something unwanted. So I wasn't planning to listen to my brother's orders. I coughed. I'm not going. I coughed again. These days, I couldn't help but cough. After looking online, I found out cancer cells had invaded the pleura, causing pressure on my organs. Besides coughing, I often felt some difficulty breathing. Sometimes I would cough so hard that it felt like I was about to cough out my entire lung. So even saying a complete sentence became difficult for me. My brother paused, surprised. The voice on the other end softened slightly. You've been out for 2 months and you've caught a cold, coughing like this. Do you finally understand how hard Nora has had it these past 5 years? I coughed again. I wanted to speak, but I could only manage to say one word before I was caught in another fit of coughing. My brother interrupted me. All right. Kicking you out of the house was to help you understand Nora's pain. I sent you a 200 yuan red envelope to buy medicine. If it weren't for remembering what Mom said, I wouldn't bother with you. After saying that, he quickly hung up the phone. At the same time, he promptly transferred money to me on WeChat. But it wasn't 200 yuan, it was 1,000. With a message, you must come back tomorrow. If you can't make it, don't blame me for coming to drag you back personally. I flipped my phone upside down on the bed. I didn't accept the red envelope, nor did I reply to his message. Because I was coughing violently, feeling nauseous, and unable to suppress the urge to vomit. In the end, I couldn't help but spit out blood. How could even waiting to die be so painful? My brother has always been true to his word. The next day, I was awakened by an excruciating abdominal pain and barely fell asleep until dawn. But before I could sleep soundly, the door of the apartment was knocked on continuously. I struggled to open my eyes. The apartment was not soundproof, so I could clearly hear my brother's angry shouts. "Emily, get out here now. I notified you yesterday that you mustn't be late today. You're doing this on purpose. At your young age, why aren't you learning properly?" I propped myself up from the bed. On the white floor was a large patch of dried blood, which had almost coagulated. "Emily, it's this late and you're still sleeping." Before I could speak, my brother grabbed the collar of my SH shirt and yanked me up from the bed. His eyes were filled with fury, as if he was convinced that I was sulking on purpose, deliberately ignoring the calls and refusing to come home. "I told you that today is Nora's birthday. She has been waiting for you at home for a long time. If she says you won't come, she won't celebrate her birthday. How can you take this so lightly?" Just from that action, the immense discomfort I was feeling made me unable to hold back. I spat out a large mouthful of blood. Blood sprayed across his face. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. My brother, covered in blood, stood frozen in place. His expression filled with confusion. He looked down at the blood splattered on the floor and then reached up to gently touch his own face. The sticky blood stained his hands, and his hands trembled slightly. "Emily, what kind of crazy scheme are you up to again?" My brother's voice had calmed down a lot, and the way he looked at me surprisingly carried a hint of worry. "Why are you coughing up so much blood? Did you hide a blood packet in your mouth because you knew I would come today, just to scare me?" I sneered and propped myself up to stand. After spitting out that mouthful of blood, I felt unexpectedly relieved. My lower abdomen was in excruciating pain, and I dug my nails into the back of my other hand until I drew blood, which made me feel a bit better. "Yeah, I just wanted to scare you on purpose." As soon as I said that, my brother surprisingly sighed in relief. His brows furrowed with anger again as he grabbed my arm, but he seemed to hesitate. His movements were much gentler than before. "Stop messing around, Emily. No matter what, you're still my sister. If you've done something wrong, you should accept the consequences. We're still a family." Perhaps when one is near death, they think of ways to make themselves happier. So without thinking, I shrugged off his hand and glared at him fiercely. "Ethan, I didn't do anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. You're the one who's wrong. You're clearly my brother, yet you don't believe me. Then I don't want you anymore. I don't want you by my side." By the end, the pain that had been fading away surged back with intensity. Overcome with emotion, I suddenly felt unbearable abdominal pain. The intense discomfort almost consumed me, and I collapsed onto the floor. Ethan, who had been getting angry, looked at me in a panic and hurriedly bent down, wanting to help me. But just as he was about to reach me, his phone rang. The ringtone, which belonged to someone specific, made him quickly retract his hand. The moment the call connected, Nora's voice came from the other end. "Brother, haven't you brought Emily home yet? My birthday party is about to start. Please hurry back. I don't want you to miss it." As Ethan answered the call, he looked at me kneeling on the floor, his expression conflicted. "Nora, Emily doesn't seem to be feeling well. I need to take her to the hospital first." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Soon, Nora's voice came back. "Every time I wanted to see you, Emily was always sick and sad. But it's okay. It's just a birthday. You should accompany her to the hospital." "I'm fine." She fainted, strength leaving her voice, clearly feeling deeply saddened. After spending these years together, I knew too well Nora's little tactics. She could easily manipulate Dad and Ethan, just like now. After Nora finished speaking, there was a sudden gasp from the other end of the line. Nora fainted. Call an ambulance quickly." Then came the chaotic, jumbled sounds of footsteps. Ethan, standing in front of me, couldn't help but feel anxious. What happened to Nora? Unfortunately, no one on the other end could respond to his question. But listening to the noise, one could guess that Nora had fainted. Ethan quickly hung up, rushing toward the exit. "Brother," I weakly called out. Hearing my call, Ethan hesitated for a moment, standing still. Finally, he turned and strode over to me, bent down, pulled out a stack of cash from his pocket, and stuffed it all into my hands. "If you're not feeling well, go to the hospital for a checkup. Nora fainted. She has always been weak. She suffered a lot in these years. I need to go to the hospital and stay with her. After saying that, Ethan left the apartment without looking back. I looked down at the cash in my hands and suddenly found everything laughable. This was the brother who had vowed to take care of me when we were kids, the brother who said he would take Mom's place in caring for me for the rest of my life. I tightened my grip on the necklace that Mom had left me before she passed. It was a cute little deer-shaped necklace, her only keepsake. I looked at the little deer and couldn't help but cry. Mom, my brother broke his promise. He is so bad. This body is truly disappointing. I ended up dozing off. At home for a long time since the diagnosis, I could feel my body deteriorating every day, with continuous pain in my internal organs. Sometimes I wished I could bite my tongue and end it all. Even painkillers gradually lost their effectiveness. I lost track of how many days I had slept. When I woke up, I surprisingly felt quite energetic. Suddenly, I really wanted to eat beef noodles from a shop nearby. When Mom was still around, she would always take my brother and me there. Sometimes we would run into Liam, who usually seemed indifferent but acted very well behaved in front of Mom. At that time, my brother would whisper to me, Liam is very cunning. He just wants to impress Mom to gain her approval as a son-in-law. Hearing that back then, I would always blush and glare at my brother. Mom would laugh heartily beside us. As for Liam, his ears would turn red as if they were bleeding, yet he would still stare directly at me. Those people and moments from back then were all beautiful. As my thoughts returned, I didn't think much more about it. I quickly threw on a jacket and rushed out the door, only to unexpectedly bump into Nora and Liam right at the entrance of the community. They walked toward me, hands intertwined, looking like a perfect pair. Emily, aren't you feeling unwell? Liam spoke first, his gaze scanning me up and down. Even though it was already summer, I still felt chilly and had wrapped myself in several layers of clothing. So even though I had lost a lot of weight, at first glance, I looked even bulkier. Nora smiled at me, her eyes gleaming with pride and self-satisfaction. I told you, Sister Emily is definitely fine. The other day when brother came back, he was still worried. Now that we've seen it with our own eyes, we can go back and tell him, and he won't worry anymore. After saying that, Nora suddenly covered her mouth. Sister Emily, you're not still blaming me for fainting that day, which made brother rush back to see me, are you? Liam's expression darkened as he strode up to me. Emily, stop throwing tantrums. It's childish to pretend to be sick just to compete for attention with Nora. Since I ran into them at the entrance of the calm community, I hadn't spoken a word. But in the end, I was still branded with the accusation of pretending to be sick for attention. I had actually felt a bit better today, which was why I thought about going downstairs for a walk. But I ended up encountering unpleasant people and events, and the pain in my lower abdomen surged again, accompanied by a wave of nausea. That familiar feeling was not good at all. So I walked right up to Liam and softly asked, "Do you think I'm pretending to be sick?" Before Liam could answer, Nora rushed up to me, looking as if I had bullied her. "I know you didn't mean to pretend to be sick, but you also are." I had originally intended to spit the blood in Liam's face, but Nora happened to come close. And since I still couldn't control myself, I ended up vomiting a mixture of saliva and blood directly onto her face. Nora stood there for a moment, wiping the sticky mess off her face before she closed her eyes and screamed. "Liam, she bullied me." She turned away, closing her eyes and throwing herself into Liam's arms, trying to seek comfort from him. But for some reason, Liam, who usually favored Nora, surprisingly pushed her away this time and quickly ran over to me, placing his hands on my shoulders and pulling me into his embrace. "Emily, what's wrong?" I looked up and saw the concern in Liam's eyes. This man, who had been growing distant from me since Nora appeared, even wanting to kill me, was now panicking because I was spitting blood and feeling dizzy. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Liam asked again, "Why are you coughing up blood?" "Last time Ethan said you were spitting blood and left money for you. Didn't you go to the hospital for a checkup? You're already an adult. You can't take care of yourself properly. Spitting blood is not a trivial matter. Do you understand?" His agitation grew, as if I had caused trouble because of my mischief. I got hurt but didn't dare to tell my family, and he accidentally found out. Liam would scold me with a serious face and then treat my wounds while lecturing me. Liam's whiny voice broke in. Her eyes also filled with disbelief. She probably didn't expect Liam to push her away so mercilessly for my sake. Hearing her voice, Liam regained a bit of composure. I took the opportunity to push him away. Still feeling uncomfortable, but I could manage to steady myself. At least in front of them, I wouldn't seem so pathetic. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and looked coldly at Liam, a hint of sarcasm in my smile. What are you concerned about, Liam? Have you forgotten how you once grabbed my throat and said you wanted me to pay with my life? As I brought up those unpleasant memories, his expression darkened. But in the past, I often chose silence, so a sharp response like this was a rare experience for him. Liam paused for a moment, surprisingly not looking at Nora but continuing to approach me. What's wrong with you, Emily? Why are you speaking so sarcastically now? You weren't like this before. I didn't want to deal with him, so I turned and walked out. But Liam grabbed my wrist and forcefully pulled me toward his car. You've coughed up blood. We have to go to the hospital for a comprehensive checkup. I won't feel at ease otherwise. Let go of me. I struggled to break free but still couldn't escape his grip. Nora hurried over, casting a resentful glance at me before suppressing all her displeasure and putting on a gentle smile again. We should go to the hospital. I have a friend there who can help with the checkup. I'll call and contact them first. Liam nodded and then forcibly shoved me into the car. I couldn't break free, so I was taken to the hospital like this. As for the friend Nora mentioned, they were already waiting for us at the hospital entrance and then took me in for an examination. The entire journey was silent, but I felt that something was off. After all, I had found out I had pancreatic cancer during my last health checkup and was very familiar with this process. I knew that several necessary examinations hadn't been done, as if they were just going through the motions. Even the final report came out unusually quickly. Nora proudly held the report, saying, "My friend pulled some strings for us." We got the report really fast. After saying that, she opened it right in front of me. There's nothing wrong at all. Nora directly handed the health check report to Liam, her gaze fixed on my face. So, it turns out sister isn't sick at all. Perhaps the blood she vomited earlier was just a prop she prepared in advance. After all, sister has used such tricks before. We still have some unused blood packs at home. Yes, someone had indeed used such tricks before, but it wasn't me. However, no one believed that the freshly issued health check report from the hospital could prove that I was perfectly healthy. The worried expression on Liam's face had vanished, replaced by anger. Emily, how old are you to still be pulling such tricks? Do you think our concern for you is a joke? Liam threw the health report directly to the ground. I shouldn't have been soft-hearted toward you. I ignored him and picked up the health report. I had never dared to believe that I had cancer and had gone to several hospitals for tests, all yielding the same results. Therefore, looking at this completely healthy report, I knew it was forged. As for who forged it, I glanced at Nora and her eyes happened to meet those of her so-called doctor friend. After leaving the hospital, Liam was furious. It seemed he finally remembered the reason he had come to find me in the neighborhood. He coldly stated, "Considering the harm your previous actions have caused Nora, I, your dad, and your brother have discussed it. Just kicking you out of the house for 5 years is not enough to make up for it. You have to hold a public live stream apology. You will apologize to Nora in the live stream with thousands of viewers supervising you. There will definitely be no next time." After saying this, he directly took Nora's hand and walked out, adding one last thing as they left. "The date is set for 1 week from now. You must come." Impossible, I refused without a second thought. I didn't feel I had done anything wrong by not answering that phone call. After all, my habit of keeping my phone on silent at night wasn't something I had just developed suddenly. It had been a long-standing practice that my family was aware of. In this situation, Nora had chosen to call me, fully aware that I would never receive the call. My brother and dad believed her, and Liam also trusted her words. I feel closest to sister Emily. She would never ignore me. That was why she chose to call me, leading to years of blame directed at me. Now they wanted me to hold a public live stream apology for Nora, but I was dying. When one is facing death, one doesn't want to engage in activities that bring discomfort. The only option was to refuse. But even after I refused Liam, they still didn't give up, bombarding me with calls for days. It wasn't until 2 days before the so-called public apology that my dad, who had always disliked me, actually knocked on my apartment door. "What do you want?" Looking at Alexander at the door, my tone was unusually cold. This man had once been the elder I relied on the most, yet ultimately, for his own selfish desires, he brought Nora home, marking the beginning of my tragedy. Alexander frowned, his gaze toward me filled with discontent. I am your dad, after all. Even if you can't be as obedient as Nora, you should at least show some basic courtesy. Don't you even know to call me dad? Compared to Liam, who was a childhood friend, but liked someone else, perhaps I was initially very upset, but could accept it. Then there was Ethan, my twin brother, whose heart and eyes were only on other girls. I felt hurt by his behavior, but for our mom's sake, I left a bit of leeway. But Alexander, this father of mine, I couldn't even bring myself to call him that. He not only gave the fatherly love that belonged to me to another girl, but also betrayed my mom to some extent. He always cherished his first love and treated her child as if she were his own daughter. He had wronged my mom. Moreover, even my name was a reminiscence of another woman. He really had let my mom down. So I coldly replied, "Oh, so you know you're my father. Maybe someone who doesn't know would think Nora is your illegitimate daughter." "Emily," he suddenly yelled, raising his hand. "What are you going to hit me?" I glared back defiantly. In a fit of rage, Alexander slapped me without thinking. I had lost so much weight recently and could hardly eat anything, often feeling nauseous and vomiting. Therefore, the slap made me dizzy, and I fell to the ground. He paused for a moment, looking at his hand and murmuring, "I didn't even use much force." He may not have used much force, but my body was just too weak. I gritted my teeth and slowly stood up, leaning against the door frame. He seemed to want to reach out and help me, but I quickly stepped aside and continued to look at him coldly. "Why are you here today?" It seemed he finally remembered the purpose of his visit. "I came to tell you that you must be there in 2 days. If you dare not go, don't blame me for being rude, a threat." "What if I don't go? What can you do? Strangle me? I wouldn't be a problem. I don't have long to live anyway. If my life could exchange for his, we could go to hell together to find Mom, and I wouldn't mind." Alexander closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was a hint of cruelty in his gaze. "Your mom loved to paint, so we have a dedicated studio at home. Those paintings are still there. If you don't behave, I'll burn all of them." "Alexander, are you crazy?" I could no longer contain myself and tightly grabbed his collar. Never expect this man to treat the relics left by my mom this way for the sake of his first love's daughter. Those paintings were my mom's hard work treasures. She cherished them. He didn't move them, allowing me to hold on to his collar. His eyes lowered as he looked at me. "I'm only telling you this once. If you don't show up that day, I'll burn those paintings in front of you. Get out." I pushed him hard, directly throwing him out of my apartment. "Alexander, in the dead of night, do you ever dream of my mom? Do you hear her crying? Do you see her saying it wasn't worth it? That it wasn't worth meeting a man like you, and that it wasn't worth her efforts all these years?" I can no longer suppress my emotions, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. Using my mother's relics to threaten me made it impossible for me not to attend the event. This was truly heartbreaking. I looked at him. "Do you want to see how to force your own daughter to death?" After saying this, Alexander frowned deeply. He was a bit superstitious and had recently been using such death-related terms. Upon hearing this, his displeasure was unmistakably evident on his face. "Emily, what on earth are you talking about?" "I just want you to apologize. If you behave, you're still my precious daughter, the young lady of the Alexander family. But if you continue to be obstinate, don't blame me for being rude." I coughed. I wanted to speak, but suddenly began to cough violently. For the past few days, I had been experiencing a persistent low fever, feeling extremely uncomfortable. I used to lie quietly in my room, which made it a bit more bearable. But now, with my emotions fluctuating, my entire body ached severely, and my face suddenly turned as pale as a ghost. Alexander, who was ready to continue making threats, couldn't help but show some concern after seeing my face. "Have you caught a cold or a fever? Why do you look so terrible with that?" He reached out to feel my forehead, but I wouldn't allow it. Summoning all my strength, I pushed him out and quickly closed the door. Some people just aren't worth longing for. Even for the little warmth they provide, it's rather disgusting. I can only attend the event because he is using my mother's belongings as a threat. However, the night before Nora appeared at my doorstep, bundled up so tightly that it was hard to see her face. As soon as she arrived, she snatched my phone away. After confirming I wasn't recording, she took off her mask and hat right at the door, revealing her true self. "Emily, you're dying." She suddenly smiled brightly and pulled out a medical report from her bag, which was probably the real one. Nora tossed the report in front of me, covering her mouth as she laughed gleefully. "Dad is mine, my brother is mine, and even my fiancé is mine. Now your little life is also coming to an end. Pancreatic cancer, huh?" I even checked online. They say the later stages are really painful, making you want to bite your tongue and die. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Can you sleep at night? Don't you feel like a failure knowing you'll never measure up to me and that you won't live as long as I will? Her mocking tones seemed to pour out all the resentment she had inside. After all, my phone was in her hands and there was no recording. So she hadn't entered my room. There was no chance of being filmed. In short, she could fully display her true self and mock me without reservations. "Have you laughed enough?" I looked at her coldly. The source of my lifelong suffering, whom I also despised to the extreme, Nora, finally stopped laughing and leaned in closer. "Remember to show up on time tomorrow and apologize to me in front of all the reporters. That way, after you die, I won't touch those things your mom left you. Otherwise, once you're gone, I'll burn everything. How about that? How about that?" I raised my hand and swiftly slapped her. My body had been weak, but sometimes extreme anger brings out hidden strength. Just like now, every cell in my body was shouting to teach this woman a lesson. So my originally weak hand felt as if it had magic and swung with all my might toward her face. The sound of the slap echoed, and Nora stood there stunned. "You actually dared to hit me." I braced myself and grabbed the self-defense stick that my mother had specifically placed there. "You know I'm dying. Do you think I wouldn't dare to take you down to hell with me?" Perhaps sensing that I really might do it, Nora stepped back a few paces until she felt safe enough to continue speaking. "Well, you're dying anyway, so I won't argue with you now. After all, everything you have will be mine from now on." I nodded, scanning the hallway with my gaze, then looked back at her. "Nora, since I'm dying, I want to understand clearly. When you first joined the Alexander family, we kept our distance. Why did you have to treat me this way?" Nora sneered, her eyes full of triumph. "A family only needs one daughter. Now that I'm here, your existence is redundant. So I naturally had to find a way to take the love that belonged to you." I realized, so you deliberately hurt yourself and blamed it on me. You pretended to be bullied at school and shifted all the blame onto me. Nora's eyes were filled with anger as she looked at me. "Now that you know you're dying, I came here to laugh at you. No matter how much they might care in their hearts later, what does it matter? You'll just be a dead person. When the time comes, I'll pull a little trick and they'll believe me completely, forgetting all about you." "All right, one last question," I sighed and looked steadily at her. "Where have you been for the past 5 years?" Nora seemed a bit hesitant at my question, not answering immediately. It wasn't until her gaze landed on the phone she was holding that she slowly spoke. "If my useless mom could have held on to my dad's heart, I might have lived a life even more prestigious than yours." I said I was traveling abroad, but in reality, I just wanted to see my dad. He had no children, so I deliberately created an opportunity to meet him, and he accepted me. I thought I'd finally endured the hardship and didn't want to compete with you anymore. As for that phone call, it was just to create a barrier between you and those 3 stupid men. But who would have thought that in the 5th year, my dad's mistress actually brought back a son? I became the abandoned one. I had no choice but to pretend to be found by you and return to this house. Although it's not as wealthy as living with my dad, at least there's someone who dotes on me. I'm not picky. This was the whole truth. I quickly scanned the hidden pinhole camera across the door and smiled slightly at Nora. "I want to say thank you for allowing me to understand everything before I die." This live stream, after warming up, had already exceeded 1 million viewers online. Even offline, many well-known reporters and the paparazzi were invited. In short, Nora was determined to ruin my reputation, ensuring that even in death, I would be spat on by thousands. But I didn't go. I just sat at home in this little apartment my mom prepared for me. I found photos of Ethan and Alexander, as well as many diaries left by my mom. Everything felt so warm. I laid out all these items representing our family of 4, filling the living room to the brim. I even took the whole night to dig up all the photos of Liam and me through various channels. By the time I finished setting everything up, my phone was almost exploding with calls. When I answered, my brother's angry voice came through. "Emily, you're pulling another stunt. You promised to apologize, and now that the time has come, where are you?" I looked at the photo in my hand. In it, Ethan was only 10 years old, still a pretty arrogant little kid. He let me clip a bunch of cute hairpins in his hair, looking helpless yet posing with a peace sign for the camera. This scene was so heartwarming. My mom had drawn a big heart on the photo, saying that the two kids in it were her treasures. She wrote, "My big treasure will protect my little treasure." My voice suddenly became choked up. I took several deep breaths to calm myself down. Going is impossible, Ethan. No matter how confused you are or how much you hate me, you should understand how important that art studio is to Mom. If you can let Alexander and Nora destroy it, then you really don't deserve to be Mom's child. For the first time, Ethan fell silent. After a long pause, he slowly spoke. "That was originally just a way to provoke you. That's Mom's legacy. I can't let others destroy it." He was somewhat clear-headed. Even if not much, it was enough. I sighed in relief and said my final words. "I won't go to the scene, but we can do a live connection with that." I hung up the phone, then opened the live stream and connected to the broadcast room using the official account they had provided earlier. As soon as the stream began, I saw the grand setup on their end. They had booked an entire day at a 5-star hotel just to showcase me apologizing to Nora. Once the connection was established, Ethan, who was the most impatient, was about to speak when he noticed the wall of photos behind me. Each photo was a treasured possession that Mom had kept for a long time, snippets of beautiful memories. The number of viewers was rapidly increasing, but I still hadn't spoken. I waited. Finally, Nora spoke first. "If Emily doesn't want to apologize, then let it go. Why bother with a whole wall of photos to play the emotional card?" Alexander couldn't hold back either, standing protectively beside her with a fatherly demeanor. "Nora, how can you be so kind like your mother? But Emily did something wrong and she must pay the price. This is the decision your brother and I made." Liam also nodded in agreement. "Nora, you're too kind, which is why you keep getting bullied by her." The comments were rolling in. I glanced at them. Most were cursing me, accusing me of deliberately using these photos to play the emotional card, just to avoid apologizing while pretending to be the victim. Very annoying and disgusting. I didn't blame these medicon. After all, during the prior build-up, I had been portrayed as an utterly wicked woman. Originally, I just wanted to die quietly, wondering if my closest people would feel even a hint of sadness at my passing. But now I just felt ridiculous. Some people's hearts can't be warmed. Some people's eyes will always be blind. In that case, if I could retaliate, that would be a form of peace before I die. So I took a deep breath and began to fight back. Actually, I don't like my name at all. Just if Nora could do it, so could I. As I saw a flood of question marks in the comments, I slowly spoke. I always thought every child's name comes from their parents' expectations and blessings. But my name, however, was given by Dad to commemorate his first love. Isn't that ridiculous? No matter what, no matter who I am, the public's attitude towards scumbags was surprisingly uniform. Just like now, what I thought today was about Emily apologizing, but there's more drama. Using your daughter's name to commemorate your first love, that's just sick. The comments were already heatedly discussing it. I continued to seize the opportunity. Mom was a very traditional woman, devoted to her husband and children, obeying Dad completely. Even when she was sick and dying, she couldn't let go of us three. But in the end, she just passed away. Dad brought back the daughter of his first love as if she were his own. I played the surveillance footage I got from my neighbor last night on another tablet. In a family, one daughter is enough. Since I'm here, your existence is redundant. I naturally have to find a way to take away the love that belongs to you. I said I was going abroad for a vacation, but in reality, I just wanted to meet my dad. He doesn't have any children, so I deliberately created a chance encounter, and he accepted me. That phone call was just to create a barrier between you and those three stupid men who are completely unaware. Nora's words in the video played back clearly one by one. The truths I had been unable to defend myself against and had tried to explain multiple times were now presented in front of the vast audience online. This time, through a live broadcast, everyone would see what kind of person Nora truly was, as well as Alexander, Ethan, and Liam. Their actions would be fully exposed online, with nowhere to hide. I looked at Alexander in the live stream. This man, whose temples were already showing some gray hair, seemed unable to believe that the Nora in the video could be so monstrous. He turned to her repeatedly, asking, "Nora, is this all true?" Nora naturally denied everything, but the surveillance footage couldn't lie, and I had already posted it on social media. After public scrutiny, it was enough to prove that it was absolutely real. "No, Dad, I didn't. Emily forced me into all of this." Ethan, who had always been carefree, despised being deceived. Because of this, he felt increasingly disappointed in me for bullying Nora multiple times, only for me to deny it every time. Now, discovering that the biggest liar was the one he had always pampered, Nora, Ethan's face darkened. He grabbed her wrist and, facing the live camera, began to interrogate her. "Didn't you say you just wanted to ask Emily a question, that she was bullying you on purpose? So, all of this was fake. Even those 5 years, the 5 years I felt so guilty about, was it all part of your elaborate scheme from the very beginning?" Liam was similarly losing control. He seemed to struggle to keep his emotions in check, simply saying, "Nora, you've disappointed me too much." Nora shook her head desperately. "No, it's not like that. Emily deliberately brought these videos from elsewhere. They're all fabricated. Don't believe her." The hotel was already in chaos. The journalists they had hired at great expense, who originally intended to document my apology, had now become a knife plunged into Nora with red eyes. Nora desperately wanted to explain, but no matter what she said, it was futile. Out of anger and humiliation, she pointed at me on the other end of the video and yelled, "Emily, so what if you expose all the truth? What if you set me up? You're dying. You're going to die. What right do you think you have to compete with me?" The audience, who had always enjoyed the spectacle, were now watching as the truth flipped again and again. With the initial build-up and promotion, this live broadcast had become increasingly lively. At the peak of the atmosphere, I slowly picked up a blade next to me and placed it against my wrist. Yes, I'm going to die. I couldn't hold on any longer. My body is truly suffering. Forgive me for using this method to end my life. If I could, I really wanted to see my mom earlier. Then I would rush into her arms and tell her that this world isn't beautiful at all, and that only her embrace is warm. Emily died, dying in that live broadcast under the gaze of millions of Nikon. She slowly picked up a photo of herself with her mother, pressed it against her heart, and closed her eyes in satisfaction. Blood stained her body, and the poor little girl simply stopped breathing. Even though some concerned medicines had called for help early on, by the time the ambulance arrived, it was already too late. On the other end of the live stream, the 3 men had already turned red with rage, screaming to break out of the hotel, but were directly blocked at the door by the reporters with severe congestion. It took them more than half an hour just to get out, but by the time they arrived at the hospital, Emily had already lost her breath. The broadcast had created such a sensation that nearly everyone knew about the incident. So no one comforted them, they only stared at them with hatred, gazing compassionately at the little girl covered with a white sheet. She is her mother's treasure, not someone else's emotional substitute. Hopefully, in that world, she can happily live with her mother. That seemingly serious Alexander, as Emily's biological father, watched his daughter die on the other end of the live stream and realized for the first time how painful his heart was, almost to the point of death. He suddenly remembered his last moment with his daughter. The stubborn daughter looked at him and said, "Do you want to try how it feels to force your daughter to death?" So, this was what it meant. He suddenly squatted on the ground, covering his face and weeping bitterly. Nora wanted to comfort him, saying, "Even without Emily, you still have me. I'm also your daughter. My mom is the woman you love the most in your life, isn't she?" The most loved woman in Alexander's mind, the image of Nora's mother quickly flashed by. The beautiful woman who shone like the moon in the sky was a memory he could never forget in his life. It could be just a moment of memory, yet all remaining thoughts belonged to Emily's mother. That seemingly ordinary woman who had accompanied him year after year occupied most of his life and made his heart, which should have withered and died, beat again. So he loved her, but how could he have forced his daughter to death? Looking at his own hands, Alexander suddenly felt as if they were covered in blood. That blood belonged to Emily, the little girl. He cried out, "She blames me. Arang blames me too. What should I do? What should I do?" Arang was Emily's mother. In the end, this man over 50 years old fell down the stairs and never woke up again. Having lost his mother in childhood and his father in youth, the once mighty Alexander family was left with only Ethan to hold it together. It was a difficult struggle for him. Ethan spent sleepless nights, his mind always replaying the scene from the night his mother passed away. That mother, always gentle, suddenly became very angry, repeatedly asking Ethan, "Why didn't you protect your sister? Why didn't you protect your sister?" Because he was blind and heartless, Nora was kicked out of his home. This girl he had taken care of for so long knelt at the door, crying like a pear blossom in the rain, repeatedly saying it was her home and that she would never leave. Ethan opened the door, looking down at her. "This is not your home. This is Emily's home. My sister's home." Nora, probably completely hopeless, with red eyes, screamed at the top of her lungs, "Who are you putting on a show for now, Ethan? Do you regret it now? Wasn't it you who pushed Emily away with your own hands? Wasn't it you who didn't believe in her and hurt her time and again? How dare you act like you're repenting now? You deserve to suffer like me for the rest of your life. An endless suffering." Yes, Ethan felt he deserved only pain. So he left all his assets to other cousins and siblings in the family. Ethan himself only wanted to guard that small apartment, holding onto the last memories of his sister. The apartment was filled with many photos left by their mother. Ethan initially wanted to cherish those photos, but that day a heavy rainstorm hit, and the balcony window shattered. The wind blew in, sending many photos flying out. He reached out to grab them, but the floor was soaked. As he slipped, he fell from over 20 stories high. It was said that before he died, he was still tightly holding onto the family portrait in the photo. Emily was smiling happily. In the end, only Liam and Nora remained. Liam was actually a very calm person. So calm that even when he realized too late that he truly loved Emily, he could never reach the point of dying for her. He repeatedly tortured Nora in place of Emily, returning all the pain he had once inflicted on Emily bit by bit. But those who betray true feelings must swallow 1,000 needles. This youngest CEO's online reputation plummeted, and the company's products were seriously impacted. The Liam family itself was already extremely complicated. A CEO boycotted online would ultimately be replaced. Liam lost his proud identity, pressured heavily by other brothers. He didn't feel sad. He stayed with Nora and took her to a remote mountain forest where the two settled down. Nora was covered in injuries, crying out to the heavens with no response, calling out to the earth with no answer. The smile on Liam's face had become somewhat distorted as he repeatedly said they both needed to atone, not just torturing Nora but himself as well. Finally, on a day filled with heavy snow, everything returned to calm. I was dead, but my soul didn't leave immediately. I watched those 3 men whom I had once considered the most important in my life reveal their regrets after my death. That was the expression I wanted to see, yet it didn't feel as satisfying as I hoped. Perhaps I felt that all their regrets and tears were meaningless to me. Their tears were like dirty water on the ground. Apart from feeling disgusted, I couldn't feel even a hint of heartache. I drifted around them, watching as they slowly discovered more truths, seeing them find more and more traces of me in that apartment downstairs. I watched them feel regret and pain. I didn't know how long I stayed with them. It felt like I watched all the people connected to me leave one by one. Finally, my last breath dispersed. My consciousness became blurred, and in my daze, I seemed to see my mother. She was waving at me. I ran towards her. "Mom, I miss you so much,"